Welcome in, everybody, to GC Live Afternoon Drive. It is Thursday, March 28th, and South Carolina held their fifth practice of the spring earlier today. We had an opportunity to observe the first six periods, so we will discuss that in a little bit. We also had an opportunity to listen to two of the assistant coaches today, wide receiver coach Mike Furry, as well as defensive back Torian Gray. In addition to that, earlier in the week, we had a chance to catch up with a handful of offensive and defensive players, I believe 13 between Wednesday and Tuesday, excuse me. We had 6 offensive players on Tuesday, and then another 7 defensive players spoke on Wednesday. Having said all that, let me just get into it. My overall thoughts from practice today, because it's one of those things that, look, we're only a couple practices in. We don't get to see that much. We don't get to see really a lot of 11-on-11 periods. The only 11-on-11 that we got to see today was what they call sudden change. And what that means is they'll be doing one thing and then they'll just try to do something different real quick to be able to create that kind of that shock effect so that both the offense and defense can prepare, especially the defense. So they did a sudden change period, a couple periods in. It was probably around period 3. And what they did was there was 3 third down opportunities. I think it was like 3rd and 7, 3rd and 5, situational football. And that's all it was. So we didn't have a chance really to see 11-on-11. We didn't get to see the quarterbacks really throw the football at all. We didn't get to see much of anything other than just some positional drills. So from a takeaway standpoint, I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, man, like this looked really good. Oh, this looked – because we're not out there that long. We don't have a chance to be able to observe everything. And even if we did, 5 practices into the spring, what are you really going to be able to take from it, even if you're at the practice the whole time? Now, what I can say is there are some things that when you try to look at it from an individual standpoint, you try to look at from a, okay, is there anything that you can pick up? I think one thing that I noticed, and it goes back to some of the things that we heard throughout the week, whether it be from Shane Beamer, is that Lenore Sellers is taking on that leadership role. And he has to, right? He doesn't have Spencer Rattler in the room. Now, Beamer alluded to it, that he does have Luke Doty, who is popping his head in the quarterback room today during one of those sudden change periods, during that 11-on-11 situational period. Doty worked with the 2s at quarterback. Now, again, it was just one throw. Actually, it wasn't even a throw. They weren't able to get the ball off. Defense brought the pressure. But he doesn't have that veteran player in the room to really lean on for the most part since Rattler's not here anymore. So what have we seen based on what we've heard from the press conferences, based on some of the things that I've been able to gather from talking to people inside the building, is that you have this guy, Lenore Sellers, who has been on record saying in the past that he's kind of a quiet guy. And yet, since he's got back in January, he's taken on more of that leadership, that vocal role. Now, that doesn't mean he's changing who he is in the sense that he's coming out and he's yelling and he's doing that, but he's speaking up more. Because you need that from your quarterback, especially at this level. So to hear that a guy who is a redshirt freshman would still be a freshman if it wasn't for the fact that he enrolled early a year ago in January of last year. He has one spring ball underneath him. Going back to last year, he has one fall camp and one fall season, one collegiate season, 4 games under his belt. He has experience. He understands what the objective is, what they are trying to do, schematically speaking, in Dal Loggins' offense. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some tweaks because there's some things that Spencer Rattler was able to do that you're probably not going to ask Lenoris to do if Lenoris is your guy, if Robbie Ashford is your guy, whoever it is. But we're going to go under the premise that Sellers will be the week 1 starter, at least for this conversation. If you guys have any thoughts, weigh on in, whether you're listening on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. We appreciate you guys joining the show today. But being able to have Sellers go out there and understand, hey, you know what? This is what I'm supposed to do. And he's going to continue to learn. There's going to be some things from just a knowledge standpoint that he's going to continue to pick up over time. That comes with experience. That doesn't just happen overnight. There's things that he's going to be able to do that Spencer might not have necessarily been able to do, just because from a skill set standpoint, there's some things that are different with Sellers' game. Certainly his ability to be able to be a little bit more mobile than what Rattler was. The fact that he's a bigger boy, right? He's a big guy. He can move. And it's not going to be easy to take him down with just one tackler. I'm not saying that Rattler was, okay, you just flick him and he falls down. But certainly when you look at Sellers and you look at that size and what he has, you understand there's a different dynamic that he's going to be able to bring to the game that perhaps Rattler wasn't. And that's okay. Now, from a measurement standpoint, according to South Carolina's latest update on their roster, this is according to their website on Gamecocks Online, Sellers is 6'3", 240. You can notice a difference when you see him up close. We had a chance to do that today. We had a chance to see him when he spoke to the media earlier in the week on Tuesday, or was it Monday? So we've had an opportunity to see there's some growth with him from a physical standpoint. Never mind the mental side and from a maturity standpoint, all that. There's growth there from him. See what you guys have to say. Justin Thomas, saw your tweet about the running back coach. Thoughts? We'll get into that a little bit more, Justin, but for those of you who aren't aware of what Justin's talking about, there were 3 coaches that were slated to meet with the media today. And typically, when you have positional coaches, the way that Beamer's done it during his time here, we'll have 2 opportunities to speak with positional coaches. You might have a third one in there because of the Beamer, Birdies with Beamer golf outing that takes place towards the end of July. But typically speaking, you only have 2 opportunities to speak with positional coaches at the podium. I'm not including introductory press conferences, all that stuff, because obviously that's a one and done kind of deal, right? I'm talking year to year. So today, that opportunity was to speak with Mike Furry, wide receivers coach, defensive back coach Torian Gray, and running back coach Markel Blackwell. Now, certainly, because of some of the things that have been reported this week, some of the things that Gamecock Central has been paying attention to, our very own insider, Chris Clark, who does a phenomenal job, talked about it, that there was an opening at Ohio State, still is, for the running back coach position, and it was just something to monitor. Now, the fact that Blackwell had the opportunity to speak today and declined, that's according to South Carolina football SID, Steve Fink. The fact that he declined after all of this has been going on this week, from an optics standpoint, doesn't look great. Doesn't look great. I will say, though, pump the brakes as far as, wait a minute, okay, he's gone. Because I saw some comments like that, and I get it. Because, again, from the optics standpoint, like, why not just get out in front of it? Why not just go in front of the media? And today, honestly, there's probably about 6 of us in there because some of the media is up in Albany. You know, David Cloninger from the Post and Courier, Rick Henry from WIS. There's reporters that are traveling, and they're up there already or have traveled, and they're covering the Sweet 16 with Don Staley and Gamecocks women's basketball. So you have really a skeleton crew as far as what the media room looked like today in comparison to what it typically looks like. So I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want to address any of that today. I don't know. I get it. Optics doesn't look good. But what I would say is, let's not jump to conclusions yet, because he was at practice today. And the reason I bring that up, as dumb as that sounds, as silly as that sounds, because it's like, well, Mike, he's under contract. He should be at practice. I bring those things up because I've seen some people ask that question. Was he in the building today? Was he at practice today? Yes, he was at practice. Yes, he was in the meetings with the running backs, from everything that I've been able to gather. Just chose not to speak with the media for whatever reason. And that could have been because of, again, a number of things, right? Maybe from a meeting standpoint, whatever the case may be. And I'm not here to make excuses because, like I said, I'm looking at it in a similar way to a lot of you, I'm sure, which is optics doesn't look good. That doesn't look good. And it would have been real easy for him to go out there today and answer whatever questions and just move on. Whether or not we get that opportunity to ask him, because I'd love, look, that aside, assuming that Blackwell will be here coaching the running backs this season, I want to be able to pick his brain about what's going on in that room. There's a lot of talent. It stinks, the news that came out earlier this week that Juju McDowell re-aggravated his collarbone and he's going to be shut down for the rest of the spring, and Beamer expects him to be ready to go come fall camp. But there's a lot of talent in that running back room, a lot of new faces. So not having an opportunity to talk to the guy who is leading that room. I'm not saying that Beamer doesn't know what's going on in that room, but you want to talk to the positional coach. You want to hear what his thoughts are on what's going on in that room. So it stinks that we don't get a chance to be able to talk with them. We didn't have a chance to talk with them today, on top of obviously everything else that comes with it from an optics standpoint. So we can get into that a little bit more throughout the show if you guys want to dig into it. But that's kind of just talking about from a surface standpoint as far as, okay, wait, what's going on when Justin says, saw your tweet about the running backs coach. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. And all we did is we just relayed what the SID said. We're in the press conference room. Press conference room, I believe, in the ops building is the defensive meeting room. So it's kind of got like that movie theater style seating, and you have the podium up in front. And there's probably about, 6, 7 of us in there today. Real small crew, just because, like I said, a lot of the media who is typically in there, they're up in Albany. So real small crew. Steve Fink came in after Furry and Gray spoke, and we're anticipating Blackwell coming in there, and he's like, Blackwell has declined. He's declined. So again, hopefully at some point we'll have a chance to be able to talk with him this spring, because like I said, there's just a lot of talent in that running back room, a lot of new faces. And I know a lot of Gamecock fans out there, as well as the media, we're interested in hearing how some of those things are going in that room. Certainly, no question about it. Before we get into some of the press conferences that took place, not just today with the coaches, but from the players as well earlier this week. If you guys have any questions about anything, fire away. Here's your opportunity, as we do every Thursday. Good to be back on with you. Been traveling a lot these last couple of weeks, so apologies that we haven't been doing the GC Live afternoon drive. I think Chris and Wes filled in for me one week, so shout out to those two. Was up in Pittsburgh last week for the men's basketball tournament. Week prior was out in Nashville for the SEC men's tournament. What else we got here today? Marion 26. I'm ready for football. Marion, I'm ready too. I am ready for some football too. Baseball season's going on. Women's basketball is going on. That's great. No one's taking anything away from that. But hardcore football fans, you're itching. You're itching for football, especially come off season. Craig Godwin says, Mikey, what's going on, Craig? Bird to Fly says 240. Is that where he wants to be? Weight-wise, seems a little big for 6'3", but I don't know. From seeing him out there, it doesn't look like he's like too big as far as, and I don't know what to make a comparison to. Like there's just some guys that you see and you're like maybe that guy needs to lose some weight. It looks like it's good weight. It looks like he's been working with Luedecke a lot. Certainly all these guys have, but it looks like he's put on some good muscle. And what it could be an indication for is that they plan on using his legs. And I've talked about this before with the uncertainty that lies in that wide receiver room. And that's not to say they don't have talent, but they haven't proven it here at South Carolina with a lot of these new faces. And even guys like Nick Harbor, who, oh, by the way, was at practice today. He popped on in. Not in pads, as Beamer has mentioned in the past, that they're going to let him focus on track and field. He's been doing a phenomenal job over there. But he's going to be popping in at practice. And I think it's good for two reasons. One, he's able to get those mental reps and understand what's going on. But number two, he's showing face, and his teammates are going to notice that. Yeah, okay, 5-star athlete coming out of high school. That's great. That's great. Over time, that doesn't matter if you're not producing. That's not to say Nick didn't produce last year. He was a true freshman. He's learning a new position. But what I'm trying to get at is you earn respect from your teammates when you do stuff like that. And I think it speaks to, and not that he's the only, and I put a tweet out to the effect of this earlier today, saying that not that he's the first student athlete that has ever had to juggle two sports at once, but having the ability to say, hey, you know what? We have to go out there and we have to continue to get better from a mental standpoint. We might not be out there physically, but we have to take those mental reps. And I know to some people, they'll kind of just be like, oh, mental reps. But mental reps, especially when you play at the collegiate level. I remember just making the jump from high school to D2. I just remember hearing a lot of that. And it's just like, this is but you learn a lot. You learn a lot. I mean, we've heard different players in the past, injury-wise, right? They talk about, man, when I was on the sideline, I was able to learn. I think Kerryon Joyner talked about it last year when he was banged up. And you're just able to grasp knowledge in a different way, in a different perspective, because you're watching it from a different angle. So it's certainly valuable, no question about it. What else we got here? Clint Morrison says, it just seems like too much of a coincidence to me, going back to the Marquel Blackwell situation. Hutch says, hey, guys. Clint again says, with running back recruiting being as bad as it's been, can't afford to have a running back coach waffling around. The running back room looks night and day different, and I'm sure you would agree with me, Clint, in comparison to where it was a year ago, at least from a talent standpoint, as far as a depth standpoint goes, even experience. Having said all that, and this goes back to probably what you're trying to get at, you can't assume anything these days, simply because each year now, guys can enter the portal at any given time. And I say any given time, certainly has to be within that window. And the window for the spring, I believe, is April 15th this year. 15 days will be open for. So players want to enter the portal, got to wait then. Hutch says, I'm ready for the spring game. Spring game will be held on Saturday, April 20th, under the lights, 7 o'clock, kickoff. I say kickoff. Who knows if they'll actually do a kickoff? It's a spring game. Probably just start at the 25. Gavin says, thoughts on the repeat schedule for 2025. Not a huge fan of it. Not a huge fan. I wonder if this will be a model that the SEC will follow moving forward. And it's obviously way too early to make any assumptions of it, because in the past, you would have some teams who wouldn't play South Carolina for years, especially coming to Columbia, South Carolina. I think of Alabama in particular, because when I worked at Watch Fox, I worked with Corey Miller. And Corey's son Christian was playing at Alabama. And Corey's like, man, he never had an opportunity to play in Columbia, South Carolina. It would have been awesome. Would have been a tremendous opportunity and a neat opportunity for someone that played at Spring Valley. And certainly, on top of it all, father played there. He wasn't able to do that during his 5 years at Alabama. So I don't know if this is their way of saying, all right, South Carolina, we'll use Alabama, for example. Okay, they'll play at Alabama, and then the following year they'll play, in Columbia, and then we'll rotate. And then the next year might be a different school. Making this up for 2026 and 2027. They'll play at home this year, and then the 2027, they'll just flip-flop. I don't know if that will be the case. What I'm also interested in seeing is how much of an impact it can have with trying to keep some of those matchups that they don't want to lose altogether. I mean, the schedule for South Carolina, it's going to be really odd for a lot of us, not seeing them play Tennessee, Florida, Georgia. It's going to feel weird. But what does that look like moving forward? What does that look like moving forward? What else we got here? Lynn says, good afternoon, Mike. Good afternoon, Lynn. Wyatt Stumbo says, do you see a way Vershawn doesn't start this year? Well, I'll go back, Wyatt, to what I wrote a couple months back, as I'm getting killed by allergies. So I apologize if you keep seeing a jabroni in front of you scratching his nose. That's why I'm doing this. Friggin' pollen's beating the crap out of me. But I wrote back a couple, I'd probably say maybe 2 months ago. I'm trying to remember when I did my breakdown on the offensive line. And it's changed a little bit. Trey Jones is no longer in there. There's been some tweaks as far as players walking away in the offensive line room. But I think what I look at in that room, I do like the idea that Vershawn will be in there as a starter. I think, to me, I don't see him being the center. The only way I see him being the center over Torricelli Simpkins is if they feel like it was kind of similar to what happened last year with Nick Argiulo, is if they feel like Torricelli gives them a better look and a better fit from a rapport standpoint, right? When you have all five guys up there, because that's what it's about, right? You can have one player be a phenomenal center. You can have one player be a phenomenal guard, but how does that mesh and gel with the other four guys on the offensive line? So last year, going into the spring, there was an assumption that Nick Argiulo would be the starting center. Now, he finished the season at center with a friggin' busted up hand, but he played guard. And the main reason why is because it was able to give South Carolina something a little bit different that they were looking for. Unfortunately, a lot of that went out the window. It went out the window in the spring game, after the spring game, because of the injury that took place at left tackle. And then, of course, the injury that took place at right tackle week 1 against North Carolina. Let's see. Early breakdown of the offensive line room, because I want to give you, for those of you who may have missed it, my early thoughts on the O-line, but I want to make sure that I'm being consistent here with what I put out. I did a breakdown for those of you who aren't subscribers to Gamecock Central. This is one of the many things that you'll be able to see. If you head on over to GC, sign up for the first month for just $1, one whole dollar. Sign up for $1. You're able to get all the inside information that's being discussed, not just about Gamecock football, but Gamecock athletics as a whole. Basketball recruiting, right? Baseball going on, women's basketball, and anything else in between. Head on over to GC. Take advantage of that $1 first month sign up today. Gamecock Central, part of the On3 family. So you also have an opportunity to peek on over the fence and look at other schools who are covered by On3. Pretty neat if you want to be able to see what's being said on other message boards or what's going on from a recruiting standpoint. Pretty neat opportunity to take advantage of that. All right, what I have here. My week 1 prediction, and this is obviously very early. Things can change. But this is what I put out, I'd say, when was this? Early January. At left tackle, I have Luedecke Babalade. At left guard, I have Vershawn Lee. At center, I have Torricelli Simpkins. Right guard, Trevon Baugh. And right tackle, I have Casey Henry. Now, Henry, of course, was plagued from start to finish in 2023. Appeared in just 2 games in what was a redshirt season. And he started week 1 at right tackle against North Carolina before getting hurt. They're very high on Henry. Does that mean, and they were very high, obviously, going into the season last year. Does that mean he's guaranteed to have that right tackle spot? Certainly not. But I do believe if he's able to come back and he's able to be the player that they expect him to be, that he'll certainly be in the mix to play right tackle. Now, the interesting thing is, I mentioned those names. The talent behind some of those players who, like a Marquis Anderson, who missed all of last year. I mean, these guys are really going to be pushing. That's not to say that Anderson can't crack the starting lineup. That's not to say I know people are high on Josiah Thompson, and rightfully so. I'm always hesitant to throw a freshman in there right away. It's very, I wouldn't say you have outliers. It doesn't happen as often, certainly when it's not because of an injury. And in a perfect world, honestly, it'd be great if Josiah doesn't have to play more than 4 games as a freshman, because then he's able to develop, he's able to put some more muscle on, and he's able to be just an absolute tank, and you are able to preserve that redshirt year moving forward. But you have some talented guys. You have some talented guys that I didn't even mention. And never mind the true freshmen, whether it be Josiah Thompson, Cam Pringle, all 6'8", 340 pounds of him, who's not out there right now in the spring. He's come back from an injury. Blake Frank, saw him moving around today at practice. You have some talent out there. You have some talent. So I think more than anything, the thing that stands out to me about South Carolina's offensive line, you have talent. You have more experience. Some of that was gained because of injuries last year, which you look at it from a glass half full standpoint now. At the time, it might have been glass half empty. But now guys like Baugh, guys like Babalade, they were able to gain experience. I mean, Babalade appeared in 11 games with 9 starts as a true freshman. Gained plenty of experience at left tackle last year. Baugh, named a freshman All-American in 2023, appeared in 11 games, made 8 starts, most notably at right guard. So in the moment when these things were happening, and even though both players held their own last year, in the moment, it was just like, man, we got to throw 2 freshmen out there. Now it's like, all right. And it's one of those things that you just try to look, again, at the glass half full after the fact. I'm not going to look at it in the moment and be like, man, this is perfect. Although, like I said, both players held their own. But they're able to gain experience from last year, and I certainly believe they're only going to get better this year, and they're going to need it. They're going to need it. As good as Sellers could be this year, as good as what the running back room could be this year, as good as the tight end room could be this year, you're going to have a quarterback that is filling in some very big shoes. On top of it, you have a wide receiver room that has talent, but a lot of that is talent that has been demonstrated at other places. What is it going to look like at USC? Can they create that separation to be able to help out the young quarterback? I think being able to have an offensive line to give Sellers or whoever the hell the quarterback's going to be week 1 some time to throw, obviously it's going to be beneficial, but you need to be able to create separation. I keep going back to the 2020 season, and South Carolina really struggled to create separation that year. Really struggled. They had Shi Smith, but kind of like a youth basketball player that can only dribble with his right hand. Once you took Shi Smith away, South Carolina, they couldn't dribble with their left. They really struggled to be able to throw the ball anywhere after that. Now, Kevin Harris, of course, had a phenomenal year on the ground, led the SEC in rushing yards. But when USC needed to throw the football, and especially that year, they fell behind a good amount of games. They had to throw the football. You took Shi Smith out of the picture, they weren't able to do anything. So I bring that up because even if Sellers is ready to go and he's ready to be a stud right now, and the offensive line's that's great, running back, it's great, they need to be able to have wide receivers be able to create separation. You don't have Juice Wells anymore. You don't have Xavier Legette. Shoot, we can go back a couple of years. You don't have Josh Vann anymore. You need someone in that room to step up. And while I still feel like Nick Harbor is developing as a wide receiver, and obviously he's not out there right now in the spring, but I feel like Harbor, he can be, pushing for a 2, pushing to be a number 3 this year. I don't think he's ready to be a number 1, and that's okay. That's okay. But who's going to be that number 1? Who's going to be that top guy? We're hearing a lot of good things about Gage Leverdine so far. We're hearing a lot of good things about some of the players that have come in. I've been very high on Jared Brown. We're going to continue to monitor how he's doing this spring. Haven't heard as much comparison to some of these wide receivers, but that's okay. Still early, but they need to be able to create separation. They need to be able to help out that young quarterback. What else we got here? I'm going to go back down here. Bruins Nation. Mike, most important question of the day. Sugar and grits, or are you normal? I'm a dumb Yankee, Bruins Nation. You know that. You know that. I just eat whatever the hell you put in front of me. Grits, I'm slowly starting to come on the grits bandwagon. More of an oatmeal guy, but I'm starting to come on. I don't know what the hell. You just put it in front of me. I don't know the friggin' difference. What's going on? Chris Shuttleworth asking, what's up with the running back coach declining the media? We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, Chris. So if you missed it, we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but we talked a lot about that at the beginning of the show. We'll have this posted on the Gamecock Central YouTube page. If you're watching, I know you're watching on Facebook now. I'm not sure if you're able to scroll it on back, but talked about it within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the program. Bruins Nation, I heard Gage was that dude. Yeah. I mean, we heard a lot from Mike Furry today talking about it, and it looks like, because we've been waiting for some of those press conferences to be posted to see if we can share them during our show today between 2 to 3. Might go a little bit longer, but it looks like Mike Furry, his press conference is officially up. So Furry met with the media for about 10 minutes today. I'm going to play that press conference so you guys have an opportunity to listen to him. Thought there was some pretty good stuff that he had to share. We'll listen to him. We'll also listen to Torian Gray, and I'll try to throw in a player or two before we wrap up. I know I've been talking a lot today, so let's get on over. Let's listen to the coaches. Let's listen to the players. And if you guys have any thoughts on the other side of these press conferences, we'll pick things up and we'll answer some of those questions. So without further ado, let's listen to what Mike Furry had to say today.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad.
Awesome.
What was it like at practice today with your guys? What was sort of the latest that you've seen on the field from those guys?
Yeah, I think there's I think what you and I, as we talked about from day one, I think the greatest thing that I'm seeing right now is just the growth in these guys, right? Playing the game of football is not just predicated on talent. Like, you have to develop your talent, and you've got to continue to get better every day. And I think the one thing that I'm starting to see out of our guys is the understanding of the playbook, understanding of the details of what we're asking them to do. And they're starting to make some plays because of it. And I think that's the most gratifying thing.
Mike, you've gone through this process before. You go into a new wide receiver room, but for the fact that it's been just so quick since you got here, the quick turnaround between getting here and then obviously practice is starting, what have you relied on to be able to build some of those relationships as they look to earn your trust, but vice versa as well?
Well, I think the biggest thing is coming into that room and not demanding what I want out of that room right away, not trying to build up to that moment. We ain't got time for that, and I think the biggest thing is coming in and setting those standards that we want, what type of players that we want to become, how we want to help this football team. And this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to start now. And we're going to have to grow up fast. And I think that's been the best part about all of it is the guys have responded to that really, really well. Rather it's the meeting rooms, rather it's just questions or text messages. The communication has been phenomenal. I've seen it very quickly that there's a big care factor and an understanding of our guys that they do need to learn a lot about football, not just how to play the game, but also the football IQ, right? That helps you stay around the game. And those things have been great so far.
Hey, Mike, we've seen on social media and even out on the practice fields, Gage Larvadain making a lot of plays out there. What have you seen from him in your couple weeks here so far?
Yeah, I've really been impressed with him, along with other guys that are in that room. I think to play wideout, you have to have some confidence, and you got to have a little swagger to you. You got to be tough. You got to be mentally tough and physically tough. And he has the skill set where he's explosive and dynamic in his transitions. He's got great ball skills, and but his desire to continue to want to learn has even been probably the most impressive thing that I've seen since we've been here. But he has made some plays. He's getting comfortable with what we're asking him to do, and he's starting to be able to showcase the ability that he can bring to the table here at South Carolina.
It's just 5 practices in for Mazio and DeBron in college, but
Yeah.
how have those guys come along?
Yeah,
so far?
I think those two guys. If you'd asked me day one, I probably would have been able to tell you that the way they look and the way they were looking and just kind of feeling everything out, you knew it was day one. After the last 2 practices 4 and 5, those guys have really sunk in. And I would not say they're freshmen anymore. I mean, those guys, I'm impressed with their turnaround for their youth, but yet both of those guys have a very, very high meter of competitiveness. They have a high character or high care factor, and it has allowed those guys to jump in fast and kind of start taking a little bit of some ownership that you belong here at number one. And now you got to continue to grow. And they both have shown that over the last couple of days. I've been highly pleased with both of those guys.
We saw Nick Harbor out on the practice field a little bit today. We know he's been going to meetings and stuff, but how do you develop a relationship with him when you're only maybe getting him in meetings and seeing him in spurts rather than, having him on the practice field every day?
Yeah. All I can say is, Nick and I see or talk to each other probably 4 or 5 times a week, rather in person or via text or just conversations on the phone. I understand where he's at and what he's wanting to accomplish. As I've been told, I mean, in myself, that we have full support of that decision, and I'm gonna be his biggest fan. I hope he achieves what he wants to achieve. Obviously, he ran the 10-1-6 this past weekend and his first race, and so, but his mindset also is not only to accomplish what he wants to accomplish in track, he also wants to be well prepared from a football IQ standpoint once he gets back here in the summer, fall. And he has shown me since I've gotten here that's important to him. And we've set up those schedules to make sure he's ready to go when he comes back.
So there you go. Wide receiver coach Mike Furry meeting today with the media. And you heard there at the end, he's continuing to have dialogue with Nick Harbor, and that's massive, right? I'm going to show some of the highlights from practice today, and Harbor was there, as I alluded to earlier. And I think that's important because, again, for 2 reasons. One, you show face, your teammates understand that the sacrifices that you have to make to get out there with the schedule that he has right now with spring and in school as well. And the fact that he's sacrificing maybe a couple hours that he gets to be able to get some extra rest in with everything he's doing to be in that building shows that he cares, number one. But number two, he's also able to get acclimated to the new wide receiver coach, Mike Furry, as well as what this offense is trying to accomplish as they move on from the Spencer Rattler era and perhaps leaning into the Lenoris Sellers era as being the week 1 starter. We'll have to wait and see come game 1. But point being is he's able to take those mental reps. This was some of the sights and sounds from practice today, in case you've missed it, with practice. And again, not much to really be able to take away from practice today, simply because 6 periods in which the media is able to watch. Not a lot went on other than your classic, all right, this is Davis Bevel throwing a pass engage, but there's not much that we're able to really take away from just what, from the periods that we saw. You saw Nick Harbor there interacting with his teammates. Dylan Stewart looking good, moving around. But it's spring practice and some of the things we've seen, Torricelli Simpkins getting some work in there. But still so early before we, take our pants off and woo, everything's going good. 1 day at a time. I will say this, though. What I do like is, and we've heard a lot about it because I think I posted something about it, and whoever commented on it, they're right. I mean, How often do you hear a coach come out and say, man, the energy was awful, in the spring? Typically, that's not the case. I get that. But what has stood out to me, and we saw this today, and we've heard a lot about it from the players over the last couple of days from their media availabilities, because of how much experience this team has, especially with the players that they were able to acquire from the transfer portal. A lot of these players are jumping up to the front of the line when they can. Now, there's a pecking order in some of these drills, and you kind of have seniority. The returning players, the upperclassmen, usually they're the ones, especially if they're starters, that are going to lead off the drills, whether it be a ball protection drill, whether it be blocking, whatever the case may be, route running. Could be rushing the passer. They did that at the other end for the edges. But I just like the competitiveness as far as guys just hopping up. Like, they're not sitting back there and just like relaxing. They're not chilling. That happens sometimes at schools. I know that sounds silly, even at a Power 5 school. I've seen that happen at South Carolina during my 8 years, going on 9 years of covering this team. It's happened before. It's only a couple practices in. We've only seen 2. I can only go based off of what I've seen on top of some of the things that I've been told from people inside the building that are at practice every day, as well as some of the things that have been said to us during the media availabilities with the players and coaches. But you could see that today. That guys are hopping up. They're eager because they understand the competition at a lot of positions. It's fierce. Talked about the offensive line room. That's a room that has a lot of talent, a lot of experience. There's going to be guys that have started numerous games that won't be starting week 1. That's just how it's going to be, simply because there's going to be an odd man out, a couple guys out, quite frankly, just because of what you have in that room. That's a good thing when you're trying to improve, right? Especially after the year South Carolina had last year. And I'm not even just talking about the offensive line room. I'm talking about any position, really. You look at the defensive back room. You look at the cornerback room in particular. You don't have Marcellus Style back. O.D. Fortune, when he stays out of trouble and he's playing in the games, he's your starter. But who's going to be on the opposite side of that? Is it going to be Judge Collier? Is it going to be Vakari Swain? Those 2 guys are duking it out right now. Emory Floyd, he's put track and field to the side this spring. He wants to play more. He's out there this spring for the first time because the last 2 years he's been running track. So you have competition, and these players understand that there's a lot of open positions right now. I know we say that every spring, and I know coaches will say, okay, every position's open, but really, there's a lot of positions that are open right now. And it's going to be interesting to see who not only starts, but some of the depth that's developed at some of these positions. Because when I look at, and we're going to go listen to Torian Gray shortly, when I look at that defensive back room, when you look at last season, they didn't have the depth to really be able to rotate as many defensive backs as they probably would have liked, especially from the cornerback perspective. I've said this before, just from my experience of playing the position, you want to have at least 3 guys that you can trust. In a perfect world, if you can have 4, that's awesome. That's awesome. But usually if you can get at least 3, you think back to last year, there was just so much youth in that room. And I felt like when Judge Collier, when his number was called, he held his own. Vakari Swain, he held his own. But they were still freshmen. They were going to have some type of growing pains. It's just natural. Well, both players have been in the system now for a year. They're a year wiser, bigger, faster, stronger, insert whatever word you want. And when you look at that position in particular, especially on the defensive side of the ball, when you go from, okay, D tackle, edge, linebacker, even talking about the nickel spot, safety, the cornerback position in particular on this defense, to me, has the biggest question mark. My colleague Wes Mitchell posted a story earlier in the week talking about the competition at the quarterback spot, and he's spot on. He's spot on. And it's going to, I feel like we'll see OD start. The early prediction I had going into the spring is that Judge Collier will be your other corner. Will start week 1. But Vakari Swain, especially if he's able to push Judge Collier, expect all three of those guys to play a lot this year. And like I said before, that's what you're looking for in that cornerback room. You want to have at least 3 corners that you can trust. Because as we saw in games last year, and some of it didn't necessarily have to do with the defensive backs. Some of it did. But there were times where USC, look at earlier in the year in particular, as the game went on and they got late into the games. I mean, I'm not trying to bring back bad memories, PTSD, but you look at that Florida game in particular, not being able to put the pass rush on, not being able to keep the quarterback contained on certain plays, and not being able to just do your assignment, get to the quarterback. At some point, things are going to break down. And when you have defensive backs behind you, and you even had linebackers too playing a bunch of snaps. They were playing a bunch of snaps. When you have that, you're not able to have those fresh legs that you desperately need in those situations. So that's one thing that South Carolina is looking to change this year. Having said all that, let's take a listen to what defensive back coach Torian Gray had to say today, because I felt like he said a lot of good things, especially talking about that cornerback room, the competition going on there. This is Torian Gray from today.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm good. How you guys?
Good, doing good.
Okay.
Yeah. What's it been like on that corner spot opposite OD? Seems like that's kind of the main battle in your group going on right now. How would you break that down?
It's been a great spring thus far. I've been impressed with the competition. It's been a while since we've had this type of competition at a particular spot, meaning competition in depth at the same time. So I'm excited about Judge Collier and his progress. I'm excited about Vakari Swain, Emory Floyd. Those guys are growing up in front of our eyes and showing a different level of maturity. Now, are we there? Far from there, but we got talented guys, and then adding the addition of David Spalding, who played nickel and safety for us the last couple of years. We moved him to corner also. So now we got a veteran presence, a guy who's going to push those other guys and make them better, and it makes us better as a corner group. So OD's been solid and consistent. I know what we got with OD. We got a whole body of work to see from OD, but it's really exciting to know that one of those guys are going to step up, and a couple of those guys are going to step up, and we'll be pretty good.
Torian, with the experience and the talent that you have in that safety room, I know you guys try to get creative and use Jalen in that nickel spot last year, and we've seen it over the last couple of years since you've got here. You have guys that come in, sometimes they don't even have a background of playing nickel, and they're able to pick it up. How has his growth been just early on, and what do you see with him in terms of just what you guys would expect for him to do from a defensive standpoint? Because I'm sure it wouldn't be just limited to nickel.
Yeah, definitely. Playing to Jalen's strength, DQ, and Nick's strengths. Those guys are more safety body, physical body types. So trying to get Jalen Kilgore into the nickel spot, we have to be creative. And that's part of the things we did last year, and going to some of the Joker package, and it allowed him to play to his strengths. Now that he's got a year of experience underneath his belt, he'll be able to transition and be able to do the things we need from a man matchup standpoint and from a mental standpoint of the nickel spot. So he's able to grow into it. And the great thing with Jalen, man, is it's night and day from last year, this time last year, and even in fall, a lot through fall, he's still learning. He's still trying to pick up things and still trying to understand things. Now I'm starting to tell him once, oh, I get it. I can take it from the media room right out to the field. It's not a 4 or 5 week or 3-4 month transition for him to really understand something. So this is when it starts getting fun. You got talented guys who are now experienced and had a lot of reps, and that he's going to be so much better because he has a better understanding.
With Nick, what's your, I guess, point of emphasis for him as he's going into this third season? Well,
You try to keep it in perspective. We had a pretty good freshman year, but there was some inconsistencies in there. There were some inconsistencies for a good part of last season. So the last, I thought, 5 games were pretty consistent for Nick. So how can we just be here the whole season, not have the ups and downs? So that's the goal from that standpoint, and just keep hammering the button of being consistent, just being here day in and day out, be that kind of flat line type thing. It's the message to Nick. It's the message to the group, in a sense. And, don't be up and down. Let's just, boom, be right here all the time.
Hey, Torian, where have, in the last year, Vakari and Judge grown the most in your eyes?
Well, the corner spot, any spot back on the defensive back end, there's an urgency and there's a strain. We call it accountability and details, kind of on our mantras, all those acronyms, USDA. And when you get talented guys out of high school, sometimes they don't understand the urgency of the position and why you have to strain and why you have to be detailed for the position. So just seeing them mature and okay, I'm going to try to finish this technique and finish this play with a certain strain, a certain effort. And that's been a lot more consistent. So, part of it's just growing up and part of it's just keep hearing it and keep seeing it. So that's been what I'm encouraged about, is their growth from a maturity standpoint and understanding those things we talk about.
Is DQ kind of the same, along those same lines as Nick, as far as consistency, or is there a little more to it with him?
Absolutely. The way last season went for a lot of us, again, DQ, Nick, freshman All-American status, but you're a freshman, so there's still some of this inconsistencies in between the games, but there's high points that you can see the talent, you can see them execute and do certain things. Last year, again, didn't love we were up and down too much, okay? And then when we started playing at the end of the year, there was a lot more flat line. It was just consistent. So let's take that at the end of last season and transition this, and we're in the year 3 with DQ. Let's get a full year of taking away the ups and downs and just being a little flat line.
And one more for you with your two freshmen, Busey and Kelvin. What have you seen from those 2 through 5?
Normal progressions of a freshman for the most part. They come in, you're trying to learn these coverages. You're just trying to get in a stance. You're trying to learn, where do I put my eyes and my keys? And those things like that, man, how to finish a play, how to tackle. So I've been impressed that there is growth. There is growth. A lot of times there's not a amount of growth you can see through 5 practices, but I can see growth through 5 practices with those guys. So that's encouraging.
All right. There you go. Torian Gray, defensive back coach, speaking today to the media. And again, if you're just joining us, we played wide receiver coach Mike Furry, had a chance to be able to listen to him. And unfortunately, we were not able to hear from running back coach Marquell Blackwell. We were told from sports information director Steve Fink that he had opted to decline his media availability today. If Blackwell chooses to meet with the media at some point this spring, which, again, outside of all the rumors and speculation about Ohio State, I think a lot of us would just be excited to listen to what he has to say about a running back room that features so many new faces. So no question about that. We will keep you posted. Just got an email from USC a little while ago looking ahead to next week's schedule, Monday, April 1st through Sunday, April 7th. And there's no Blackwell on it, which I wasn't holding my breath that it would happen, especially this quickly. And it might not happen at all. But the only assistant coaches, so Beamer will speak at his regular time on Tuesday at 12:30 on April 2nd. We will have offensive line coach Lonnie Teasley, defensive line coach Travian Robertson, and edge/outside linebacker coach Sterling Lucas. They will meet at 12:15 next Thursday on April 4th. So at this time, aside from Shane Beamer, those are the only 3 coaches that are slated to meet with the media next week. If anything changes, we will keep you posted, but that is what we have as of right now. Before we wrap things up, you had a chance to listen to the coaches there. We have, what a week. What a week South Carolina gave us from a media availability standpoint. We heard from this team Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So a lot of sound. we'll have all these interviews posted on Gamecock Central. We already have a lot of them already. The Torian Gray and the Mike Furry interviews. If you want to watch them in their entirety, we will have them posted shortly on Gamecock Central. If you've missed any of the player interviews this week, 13 players met with the media, 6 offensively, 7 defensively. They met with the media. Shane Beamer met with the media on Tuesday. Shorter press conferences than they typically are. The main reason why is we have a skeleton crew from a media standpoint with a lot of the media up in Albany right now to cover the women's basketball team as they get set to play in the Sweet 16 up that way. But all the interviews are posted over at Gamecock Central, and we'll have the additional ones from the assistant coaches today up shortly. We also have a written version if you want to see some of the notes, some of the things that were said today. We also have that just in case you're in the office and you have to, not going to be able to listen. But then again, how the heck you listen to the show right now? I don't know. Appreciate you guys tuning in though. I do want to play one more for you guys, and it will be from linebacker Debo Williams. We had a chance to listen to a couple players yesterday, but I really liked what Debo had to say. And I think more than anything, when I listen to Debo, and I think people that have been paying attention to this team, especially going back to last year, but have seen the growth, development from Debo Williams, he's the heart and soul of this defense. No disrespect to Nick Eamon-Worry, no disrespect to DQ Smith, Boogie Huntley. Debo Williams, he's the heart and soul. He's the heart and soul of this defense. And having a chance to listen to him yesterday, share his thoughts on not just where the defense is at currently and what he expects the defense to be, but what motivated him to come back. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, some real good stuff from Debo. So we'll play that. We'll hit on some final thoughts because there's been some questions that have popped up. We'll extend the show a little bit longer. I know we started a little bit later than we typically do, but we'll stay on, try to answer as many questions as we can today, and then we'll wrap things up on this Thursday. So this is what Debo Williams had to share, and this would be on, this must have been yesterday, losing track of the dates. Take a listen to Debo Williams.
Debo, I guess you got that kind of pull since you've been around here a little longer. What's spring practice been like? I guess this last run through spring ball for you. How's it been going?
It's been going really good, man. We just a lot of us, especially the defense, is coming back. So we just really taking stuff to the next level. You know, we're not doing the simple plays, stuff that we might have learned the first year or second year. So we just taking it to the next level, and then just everybody improving, sharpening their iron. You know.
Debo, I know it's only a couple practices in, but Coach Beamer was in here yesterday, and he feels like there's more athleticism, more speed in that linebacker room. What is your perspective? I mean, from just your perspective, what does it kind of look like, whether it be from practice or whether it be from some of the off-season training?
Yeah, definitely. Boys looking good. Everybody's fast, man. Fast, shifty, everything. And they processing and learning to play is very fast as well, too. I've been impressed first couple of days seeing everybody being able to just know exactly what they're doing. Like, we'll put an install in and they already knowing what's going on. So I'm impressed.
I should ask you about Kyle Kennard first. What's he been like on the field now these first couple of days on the practice field?
Yeah, Kyle's been good, man. He's been out there trying to lead too, you know, and then just me being here as long as I have him, and anything he needs, you know, he can hit me, and I just make sure he's good. He's been doing his thing though. Just he's been putting the work in, and I can't wait to see it pay off for him.
What have you been seeing from Bam in these early practices? I know he played really well towards the end of last season, but what makes you feel like it's going to carry over for him this year?
Just the work he puts in, man. When I'm here, I see him here too as well. Like, he's just been putting in the work, and for him, his confidence is going to continue to grow, and the sky is the limit. So I expect to see a lot from him.
Debo, I remember last year you told me you were a really intense guy. There's a lot of new guys in your linebacker room. Have they caught on yet with your intensity, and how are you trying to bring them along?
For sure. I think Coach White does a great job recruiting, and they're intense as well. So it's not a drop off in anything. They don't think it's crazy or anything like that. Like, they're with it too. So that's what I love about them, because they just like me.
Who on the offensive side has given you guys at linebacker the most trouble over the last 2 weeks?
And honestly, nobody's gonna give us trouble. We do this. No, I'm playing. We got a couple of good backs that came in, man, and y'all gonna see. I don't have any names for you. I just want y'all to see. Y'all gonna see for sure.
Debo, I don't think we've had the chance to talk to you since the end of the season. I think there was speculation as to whether or not you might test the NFL waters and look at that.
Sure.
What was one of the reasons why you came back, and how much excitement do you have about this defense, especially with what you guys were able to do towards the end of the year?
Yeah, one of my biggest reasons for coming back is I felt like as a team we didn't finish the way we wanted to, and we got unfinished business. And I want to go down as one of the South Carolina greats, and I feel like I have the opportunity to do that. And so I got to show myself and also show the South Carolina fan base that I'm the best linebacker in the country. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm coming to do. Also, I want to come and show that we can be the best defense in the country as well.
There you go. Linebacker, Debo Williams, speaking to the media yesterday. If you missed any of the players defensively, they spoke yesterday. Again, 7 players. On Monday, 6 offensive players met. And then Shane Beamer met on Tuesday, on top of the 2 assistant coaches who met with the media today, wide receiver coach Mike Furry, as well as defensive back coach Torian Gray. We will have all those videos for you. All of them outside of the 2 assistant coaches that spoke today are already up on the Gamecock Central YouTube page. You can head on over there. You can watch those interviews in their entirety if you want to listen to more from Debo, as well as some of the other players that spoke. And some of those players included Alex Boogie Huntley yesterday. Judge Collier was good. Emery Floyd, Vikari Swain, Nick Eamon-Worry, transfer edge Kyle Kennard as well. And then earlier in the week, Gage Laverdine, Vershawn Lee, Josh Simon, Robbie Ashford, Lenora Sellers, and Luke Doty. They met with the media on Monday to go on top of Shane Beamer speaking on Tuesday. If you have any final thoughts, here's your chance. Fire away before we wrap things up. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in today. Robert Doug Hill asks, if Robbie Ashford plays better this spring than any other quarterback, will the coaching staff give him the starting role despite what they said about Sellers? Robert, let me just ask you what you mean by what they've said about Sellers. Are you talking about from a leadership standpoint? Is that what you mean? I just want to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking. And I know you asked this question a little while ago, so if hopefully you're still on with us. If not, no worries. But bottom line is, nothing's going to be won in the spring. Let's put it that way. Nothing's going to be won in the spring. Now, if Ashford outperforms Sellers heading into week 1, absolutely. Absolutely, they'll go with Ashford. There's no question about that. Do I expect that to happen? I still think Sellers has the leg up simply because he's been in the system for a year. But I wouldn't write off Ashford. I mean, this is a guy that's played and started in multiple SEC games. And he brings something to the table that could help this team. So I think more than anything, and I think Sellers understands it, and we talked about it on Monday's show after having a chance to listen to Sellers. If you haven't had a chance to listen to what Sellers had to say in his press conference on Monday, you'll understand what I'm talking about if you go back and watch it. He's locked in. He's locked in. He understands that nothing's going to be given to him, that he has to go out there and earn it. And that's exactly what you're looking for out of a quarterback or any position, but especially a young quarterback. We made the comparison before. It's not true apples to apples, but you think back to that 2020 season. You think about what took place. Ryan Helinski starting the majority of the games, pretty much all of them outside of the week 1 game against North Carolina, once Jake Bentley went down, and that offseason and the things that were reported and how Mike Bobo came in and he felt like Helinski wasn't as locked in as he needed to be. And he started off on a bad foot with Bobo. And you just don't want a young quarterback to feel comfortable in that regard. From a comfortability standpoint of understanding the plays and understanding the offense, that's different. When we talk about comfortability, though, I'm talking about not feeling like, all right, everything's just good. I can go out there. Great. I'm guaranteed the spot. You don't get that sense. You don't get that feeling when you listen to Sellers. And that's what you want to hear from a young quarterback. No question about that. What did we have here? Okay, so if you have any questions, fire away. In the meantime, we're going to hit our ads as we do every week. Got an additional ad to hit this week. But as many of you know, tax season, it's here. Trying to file your taxes, get everything done sooner rather than later. If you're in a situation right now where you're like, oh crap, I got to get my taxes done. I need to get things organized. Okay, you can breathe a little bit. Give the folks over at Liberty Tax a call. They can help you overcome taxiety this tax season. That number is 803-462-5576. Once again, that is Liberty Tax, helping you overcome taxiety this tax season. Today's show is also brought to you by Andy Luedecke. If you are looking to be able to get paired up with a business, you're trying to figure out, okay, from a franchise standpoint, who do I need to work with? Andy can get you taken care of. He's been able to match many people across this area, and he's been able to help out so many. Try to find that right fit for you. Give Andy a call. That number is 404-973-9901. Andy works over at My Perfect Franchise. And today's program is also brought to you by our good friend, Clint Hammond. You see his name above my head. You see it above all of our heads on these GC Live shows. If you're in the process of purchasing a home and you're looking to find the lowest rate in the market, you're trying to make that process just much easier for yourself, do exactly what our colleague, our very own, Wes Mitchell did at Gamecock Central. He gave a shout to Clint Hammond, as well as former Gamecock quarterback and captain Perry Orth. He called Clint, and they were able to make that process much easier for both of them when they both bought their homes. That number is 803-771-6933. Once again, that is Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage. Greg says, Mike, good show as always. Appreciate that, Greg. Apologies for, I don't know if any of you noticed, might be able to notice this if you're listening to the podcast, going back and listening to it. Audio is a little wonky in comparison to what it typically is, dealing with an audio issue. Hope to get that fixed for next week's show. We'll be back on Tuesday. Chris and Wes filled in on Tuesday for us. We did a little switcheroony. Intern Joe and I, we did the show on Monday. They did it on Tuesday. We'll be back on Tuesday next week. And we'll also continue to have these shows on Thursday as well. There's no more questions. I think we're going to wrap things up here on this Thursday. Appreciate everyone that tuned in today. If you missed any of our show, head on over to the Gamecock Central YouTube page where you can watch this show and other GC Live content, as well as some of these press conferences that we've been talking about in their entirety. Hit that little bell icon to subscribe for free so you get a notification every time one of these live shows or any video, including practice. We have the highlights today. Sights and sounds of practice number 5 for the Gamecocks. That's up on the website already on the GC YouTube page. You can find that there. Or if you're a podcast listener, head on over to the Gamecock Central Podcast Network where you can find all of these live shows as well as all the appearances on 107.5, the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, as well as the Garnet Trust Hour. We have those uploaded if you want to listen just to the audio form. Maybe you're hopping in the car, maybe you're at work, whatever. You don't want to see this ugly mug. That's all right. We have you covered as far as the podcast network is concerned. Appreciate everyone that tuned in today. Again, Gamecock Central has you covered, not just for football, basketball, women's basketball, Sweet 16 action. We'll have you covered up in Albany. Chris Wilbon is up there. Be sure to follow all weekend long. We'll also keep you posted as what's going on back here in Columbia as baseball trying to keep their winning streak going this weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and get ready for a weekend that will hopefully be drier than what it's been in Columbia these last couple of days. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you next Tuesday on GC Live.